So if you and your friends can't decide what to play, and suddenly have the urge to play transhuman, struggling for survival on an Earth billions of years in the future, living on a world that is saturated by nanotech that was left there by one of the previous 8 civilizations that existed long before your world was created, you might want to play Numenera. I'm not saying the game is weird, no, I'm saying the game is much weirder. So welcome to my mad musings, and we're going to talk about Monte Cook's mind-blowing high fantasy RPG, Numenera. Numenera was one of the great Kickstarter success stories, raising enough money to actually get physical books in stores, as well as spawning a computer game based on the setting. It holds the record for the most money raised for an RPG with over $500,000, allowing it a full line of books to be physically published. There is a second edition that has been kickstarted, but so far all the books are just on PDF, so I'm just going to be talking about the first edition. Numenera is known for being a weird game, and its reputation is well deserved. This is a game where everyone is born infused with nanites, mutations are common, and superpowers are ingrained. It takes Arthur C. Clarke's magic and technology quote to the furthest degree. The world has changed so much that it's unrecognizable. The world is filled with mutants, abhumans, aliens, technological horrors from the distant past, and extra-dimensional terrors. Everything in the game is unique, and you'll need to explain everything to your players. As far as the rules go, the game is very rules light. The core rulebook is about 400 pages, and only about a quarter of that is rules. The character creation is extremely simple. It's a 3-part process. You pick your character's description, role, and focus. Each one gives you specific abilities and sets up your progression. Your description is how they present themselves, like being clever or intelligent or charming. There's 3 classes in first edition, glaives, jacks, and nanos. These translate into warriors, rogues, and wizards compared to traditional classes. The focus determines your unique power, like being able to conjure fire, track without error, or fight unarmed. Focuses are deliberately unique. No 2 party members can have the same focus. Now, the first thing you'll notice about Numenera is the rules are extremely simple. Like a single die roll settles everything. There's 3 stats: might, speed, and intelligence that cover your character's abilities. Skills are all open. There's just suggestions for skills. You can make up whatever skill you want. There's no combat skills. All combat-related roles are involved in your focus and your attributes. Instead of having numbers reflecting your attributes, instead you have a pool devoted to each stat. You can spend points from the pool to activate abilities or to lower the difficulty of a task, but the more you spend, the less health you have in that area. And again, the mechanics are extremely simple. You roll a d20, you try to hit a number specifically assigned to that difficulty, apply any modifier, and if you roll equal to or higher, you make it. Spending skills reduces the difficulty. Having a skill that applies reduces the difficulty again. You can spend your pool to reduce the target number, and that's just the basic mechanic. To modify the target number before you roll, then you try to hit the final number. That's it. It's that simple. There's very little dice rolling in the game. Damage is a set amount. If you hit with a weapon, it always does the same base damage unless you score really high, which gives you some bonus damage. Only a quarter of the book, again, covers the rules, and half of them are just a list of character creation options. Now, this game lives and dies on its setting. There's a lot to like in the setting. There's a lot that turns people off. The first thing you'll get out of this is it feels like a confusing mishmash of settings. You get the feeling that it's a post-apocalyptic superhero game, and from what you can do compared to where you are. It's a high fantasy game disguised as sci-fi where everybody has secret powers. You're dealing with psychic abominations, walking battleships armed with plasma missiles, and genetically engineered super soldiers, and the best you start off with is a crossbow and a sword. The game is extremely reminiscent of Rifts, with the massive disparity in character abilities. The fact that the focuses range from controls gravity and exists partially out of phase, all the way down to carries a quiver and entertains, leaves a lot of space in between. A large chunk of the game is searching for lost artifacts, called the Numenera, which gives the game its name. The 9th world apparently came out several hundred years ago, and their technology bases returned to the Dark Ages. Nobody knows how technology works anymore. Guns and motors are considered lost tech. There is super science everywhere, but it's nothing more significant than a magic sword in Dungeons and Dragons. If you ever want to learn how the device works, you can't. You're not actually allowed to create any of these neat devices. You can only find them and hope you understand what they do. Calling the game Scavenger Hunt the role-playing game wouldn't be too far from the truth. But don't get me wrong, the setting is very well developed. It's just that if you are pigeonholed into a very small part, the game doesn't challenge itself. You don't get to build these awesome devices. You are by rule not interested in the history of your own setting, despite being literally surrounded by elements of those who came before you. The writers have stripped out a sense of innovation from the game, leaving the players just picking over the bones of previous innovators. There's a lot of neat places to visit. The game specifically says you can only get experience from making those discoveries. And the game is one big mystery. You can find a giant tower miles high levitating above the ground, or a forest that turns people into trees, or be faced by a malevolent storm of nanites that will torture, tear, or rearrange your DNA. But the constant mysteries you face can wear thin. What's the point of living in a world where you understand nothing? Hundreds of years have passed since the last culture mysteriously vanished, and nobody wants to know their own history? That's a major issue of Numenera, not just for me, but for a lot of people. I've tried to play this game. The game is extremely weird. The setting is extremely weird. It requires you to suspend your disbelief and tells you what kind of player you want to play, rather than let you decide how you want to approach this game. You're either a superhero or a D&D character, and you're in the shattered remains of a Luke Besson movie. This might have made for a decent heavy metal comic for a few issues, but not an entire campaign. The book is still in print. It's got quite a few supplements out there. The second edition was just recently finished. Supplements give you a lot more background, new monsters, and more artifacts to find. Finding the books isn't hard. Finding people that want to play the game is. You can just have them special ordered for you at any decent game store. The rules are simplistic. There's no balance between characters at all. And the game world is, once you get past all the crazy stuff people have got stuck on their head, it doesn't have much behind it. It just reads like a crazy D&D setting. There's a video game for Numenera, and it is the spiritual successor to the Planescape setting video game Torment. I don't know anything about the video game, but I find the comparison to Planescape to be the best one, because Planescape was a very weird setting, but it was a very well done and well written setting, whereas Numenera just comes off as hollow. It looks really pretty when you look through it, but a second or third time through and the shine wears off quickly. Monte Cook can write some beautiful books, and the setting and the format of the book is spectacular. I won't knock it for that. I will give credit where credit is due. If you want to find something in the book, it's easy, because anytime something references something else, they have the page number linking you to it. But writing a interesting game world is one thing, balancing rules is another, and Monte Cook is known for having a problem balancing character classes with martial classes, and in Numenera it's no exception. Expect the guy that channels nanotechnology like it was controlling passenger pigeons to easily outmatch the guy that sneaks around and the guy that knows how to use a sword really well. Now that's Numenera. I'm not a fan. I wanted to like it because it sounded amazing when it first hit, but then the game got boring because it's really a one-note story. It's kind of like how the 12th Doctor always suddenly focused on Clara. Numenera gets pretty predictable, and parts of the party take on aspects of the fifth wheel as you go, because certain party members are just going to be so much better than the ones that just take the mundane skills. So next time I'm going to talk about Games Workshop's Judge Dredd. I've always been a fan of the comic, and with the recent passing of the artist Carlos Esquerra, it's time to give that quick look at that forgotten classic. So until next time, I am the Law.